Dallas Denery, a tenured professor in the history department, is a published scholar of medieval history and is currently writing a book about the history of lying. However, one part of Professor Denery's life that never finds its way into class lectures is his past as the singer and songwriter for the influential late 80s punk band, Sweet Baby. Now, for the first time at Bowdoin, Professor Denery has agreed to speak publicly about his involvement with the band.
I was never comfortable being in a band because it's kind of embarrassing. And it's equally embarrassing to talk about being in a band. Because think about how many bad bands there are. And essentially you're just doing what all those people in bad bands are doing, right? You're writing 3-chord songs on a guitar that no one is going to like. Being in a band required very little effort, put it that way. We would maybe practice once a month for 30 minutes. I mean, the songs were only a minute and a half long, and they only have 3 chords, so it didn't take much work. So being in a band is actually one of the easier things to be in.
Despite Denery's humility, Sweet Baby made a big impact on the punk rock scene in the San Francisco East Bay area. Denery and his childhood friend, Matt Buenarrostro, became serious about songwriting during their senior year at Berkeley. While the two enjoyed writing songs together and had attempted to turn the story of Bambi into a rock opera while they were in high school, they only created the band Sweet Baby when they were asked to play at a party for a friend who was being evicted.
We weren't really in any scene, but after that eviction party, a bunch of people who attended the eviction party were all part of the Maximum Rock and Roll group, which was sort of the big magazine for the underground punk rock scene, and they adopted us more or less.
The punk rock scene ultimately revolved around 924 Gilman Street, a club that fosters alternative music. Sweet Baby performed there with other prominent bands of the time, including Green Day, who formed in the second wave of the punk scene at the club. Ultimately, Sweet Baby recorded an album of demos with producer Kevin Army and promptly broke up. Army then submitted their tapes without the band's knowledge and got them signed to Slash Records.
He called me one day, Kevin, and he says, "So, Dallas, I don't want you to be mad at me, but I got your band signed." And so I said, "Did you tell them we were broken up?" And Kevin said, "No, I sort of didn't bother to tell them that part." So we got back together simply because they were going to pay us money to record a record, and we figured we could go on tour again, or go on tour for the first time. And then we figured we would break up again, which is pretty much what happened.
Following their signing, the band embarked on a misadventure of a tour across America, during which this footage was taped.
We did pretty much 3 months of a tour. We did sort of like 3 weeks on the West Coast, up to Vancouver and back. And then we did about 3 months all across the country. And it was very dumb. Here's how bad the tour was booked. The one place we got okay airplay, but the one place we got great airplay was in New York City, where we were being actually played on the major alternative music station. Like, we were in their top 5 for a couple weeks, which was great. So we had on our tour schedule that we're supposed to play at the Pyramid Club on Friday night, and we're very excited about this. And so we get there on Friday night, and we walk up, and the club's empty, and the guy looks at us, and he says, "Who are you guys?" And I said, "Well, we're Sweet Baby, we're playing here tonight." And he said, "No, you're not. You played here last night. There was a huge line of people, and you didn't show up." And we said, "No, look." And we showed him the tour schedule, and it said Friday night. He said, "Oh yeah, well, we kept telling your agent, the booker, that we couldn't get you in on Friday because we had long-term commitments, but we wanted you on Thursday." And she just kept saying, "Okay, good, so you'll have them play Friday, great." And so she never told us she had. So that was sort of that was sort of typical.
Sadly, Denery doesn't have any wild stories of life on the road, as the band stayed drug and groupie-free. However, one woman Denery met through Sweet Baby ultimately became his wife.
After we broke up, Lori, my wife, now called to do an interview, and I figured, what the heck, you know. She ran a label in San Francisco and wrote. She wrote music articles and had a music column and stuff. So I met her that way.
Despite the band's strong following in some parts of the country, their music only started to make money fairly recently, Perhaps unsurprisingly, because the label released their 1989 album, It's a Girl, on vinyl only, while the rest of the industry was switching to the compact disc format.
We got a songwriter's check from Slash in '89. I think they sold between 5,000 and 10,000 copies, maybe. They lost money, I'm sure. And I think Lookout broke even. A few years ago, one of our songs, Baby, 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 I Love You, was used in a commercial for Queer Eye for the Straight Girl. It was going to be a spin-off of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And someone called us up one day and said, we're going to use that song as the promo commercial for it. So that was actually the most money we ever got.
While Denery formed another band, the Bombassets, during graduate school, Sweet Baby has perhaps a more pronounced influence on up-and-coming bands.
We would have thought of ourselves as sort of a garage punk band who liked the Ramones and the Standells and stuff like this. But there's now all these pop-punk bands who sort of see us as starting that sort of stuff, but I hear them and I don't see it myself.
And how did Denery balance life on the road with studying for his dissertation in grad school, you might ask?
Even on tour, I was reading these big it was obvious I should have just stayed in school. That's all I did was read these big, boring books.
Even though he is comfortably settled into the academic life, Denery will soon join up with his former bandmates for a reunion gig at the Insubordination Fest in Baltimore this June. You can also hear Sweet Baby's music by downloading their album from iTunes. As for why Denery decided to talk about his time with Sweet Baby, he only had this to say.
She made me do this. Dana made me do this.
For BCN News, I'm Dana Borowitz.